can see, today we actually have a guest. We have Silvia Maschio, who's the coordinator of the Youth and Community Development Department of the ITACA Cooperative, which is based in Pordenone. So basically, the ITACA Cooperative is a social cooperative, of course, and it's active from 1992, and it has several areas of intervention. Basically, it operates into residential care for the elderly, as well as providing different services for them. It has services for people with disability, provides also mental health services, and also works with minors, young people, and has several projects to help community develop. It's active in east in the northeast area of Italy, in particular in the regions of Friuli Venezia Giulia and Veneto, but also in the autonomous province of Bolzano. And so today she will share with us her experiences, her knowledge about her work. So it will be very nice to, exchange with her and learn more about what she does. And I believe that she can really help us, improving ourselves. So thank you for being with us, Silvia, and maybe you can start.
Thank you for inviting me. I'll start by saying I haven't been the person who has done the activities inside the I.N.S.P.I.R.E project. That is my colleague Maria Grazia, and will be my colleague Martina, which is here with us. So I'm sorry, I can report to you some things that were told me, but I do not have the first-hand experience because my role is a backstage role in our work activity, but I'll do my best. And if you have questions, we can discuss them here, or I can collect them and give you answers in a second moment if I can't. So based on our experience, I'll start by saying we are very happy to be with you today and talk about projects that are dedicated to social integration of people with disabilities through sport, because we believe it's a very important activity. For us, being a partner to a project means that we have to share the belief in an idea of community where everyone can find a place, a voice, a value. So we believe in the importance of considering the person as a whole, and to recognize that health, well-being, relationships, belonging, participation are all connected aspects. This means that we also believe that when we work with people with disability, we cannot limit ourselves to respond to basic needs, which are obviously very important, but also we need to look beyond them. And we think that projects that work in the path of integration, disability and sport do look beyond just the basic needs, because every person has desires in terms of relationships, belonging, recognition, active participation in community life. And this is why we ended up being partner in I.N.S.P.I.R.E, because in this perspective, we believe that sport becomes an extraordinary language because it's a universal language, an accessible one. It's not the only one, but it's one of the most accessible and universal languages. Sport works in terms of movement, training, performance. It promotes health, and this is kind of obvious, well known. But it is also a context in which we can work together on things like building relationships, learning rules. There are a few other as powerful tools as sport in order to work on rules, but also experience trust, collaboration, mutual respect. These are all very, very fundamental educational principles, and all of them can be found in sport and worked on through sport. And of course, for a person with a disability, all this can be an extraordinary opportunity for personal and social growth. We can use sport in order to help people discover abilities, strengthen self-esteem, and empower them, shifting everyone's focus from what is missing to what is possible. So from the needs to the resources of the person with disability, but also the other persons around. So personal opinion, I think that there are too few projects on this, on sport and disability and integration. They're not widespread, and it's a pity, because often the world of sports and the world of social enterprises are very similar, have many things in common, but do find difficulties in working together. And that is why I strongly believe that we must, exploit all the opportunities like I.N.S.P.I.R.E project is to work together and pool skills, because sports club have a lot of technical expertise. They know the disciplines, they have the ability to develop training and coach people, while we as social enterprises organization, we have experience in developing individual resources, but also supporting families, individuals, and provide educational guidance. So if we find ways to combine these two our areas of expertise, we can create powerful synergies and promote independence and confidence and ultimately inclusion. I don't know if one of the things you want to talk about is how, because I could speak like 2 hours about this. So I was talking about the big principle, but guide me if you want to get into something more concrete.
I mean, maybe it would be interesting to give us some insight, but of course we can do it later. Maybe you can give us some, some examples or some experiences that, could be useful for us. So maybe, yeah, why not?
Okay, yeah, do interrupt me, because I do not exactly know what every one of you is doing, knows, doesn't
For
know
sure. Okay,
your objectives and so.
sure. Thank you.
So if we want to work, we need to work together as different professionals if we want to promote goals that are not just simply let's get people with disabilities to play sport. That can be done, and it's beautiful in per se, but in order to create a context of real participation, and in order to make everyone feel welcome and valued and part of the group, we must work together as different organizations with different set of skills and try to learn from each other. I mean, for someone who works in education, it's complicated to help someone with disability or not to follow a schedule of training, because that's the sports club job. But I suppose that for someone who works in a sports club, it is difficult to work on the concept of rules, to observe a group dynamic between people, because that's the job of someone who works in education. So I strongly believe that the focal point, the starting point, is to find different abilities and capabilities amongst professionals and work as a team in order to allow people with disability and also without to be a team. So we gotta be team players in order to make someone be a team player. And this also means to be ready as individuals, professionals, and organizations to take on collective responsibilities, to work on building alliances, to create networks, try new ways of working together and towards collaboration. which is the only way, I think, to produce lasting paths and real change, because integration and inclusion do not work on a 6 months, 12 months period of time. They are processes, and so we must be able to, support them through different projects. It's not enough to do one project and achieve the goal of the project. We must continue to work on these matters. And because integration is not just a destination, it is a journey. So the journey requires commitment, listening, openness, the ability to question ourselves daily, but mostly a journey requires someone to go on a path with. So collaboration and working together. I don't know if I'm giving you something useful, if you want to ask me some questions, if you want to know something in a specific way. I'm more that maybe is useful. I've been working more with communities than with individuals. So my abilities, my knowledges have more to do with working together and involving communities than the work with the person with disability. So if you're interested in something in particular, maybe that's where I can give you something useful. I don't know if there is something you've already worked with on in the previous encounters that you would like to, talk about.
Nobody has a question, maybe I would like to know if you could share with us maybe some project you've worked on that was a bit tricky, where you had, I don't know, maybe many difficulties with the group and how you overcame them, what kind of people you worked with, if you can give us some tips, could be useful. And yeah, I believe maybe um, from what I saw, Susanna work is more used to work with individuals rather than communities. So even also if you have like specific approach to that, if I remember properly, she said she worked with table tennis. So if you have some insight on that, and then we will see if others have questions, or I have more in case. So I'm very curious. Thanks.
Okay, so starting from okay, the work we have done in this kind of project has been mostly on groups. So our experience is that of having a role in being present during sport activities that included both young people with disabilities and without. So the job of the educator is that to watch and interpret and read the dynamics of the group. That can be tricky sometimes because, inside the sport activity, you need to be able to read and separate what is the dynamic of the sport you're playing. The sport has its rules, its workings, it has a setting, and what is the dynamic that arises between the people who's playing the sport. This can be tricky, but is very important because some of the interactions between the different people that are playing the sport are generated by the sport itself, but others are not, and those are the ones on which it is possible to work. So in a way, we work mostly as observators, and we try to read what's happening, read how people respond to the context, because most of the times that tells us how the person is feeling, and try to work on the type of dynamics in order to change the feeling. I'll try to be a little bit more specific. Sometimes it's kind of tricky to work with people who do participate in activities. They say they want to participate, but then they come in the activity and they do not act like it. Okay, so they go sometimes to great lengths to be there, but then when they're there, they don't do stuff. They are called to participate and they do something else. Or they also say they don't want to do stuff. In those cases, it's human to have a reaction like, what are you doing here if you don't want to do this thing? But it is also an opportunity to work out some other things. I mean, a person who decides, and that's true when we speak of people with disabilities, but also when we speak of people without disabilities, a person who wants to participate and then does not act like they want to can be a person who's having trouble with different kinds of emotion. It can be connected to fear of not being able, fear of being judged, fear of being exposed in front of others, fear of being, um, you know, valued, evaluated in comparison to someone else. This also often happens inside the sports, group sports, but it can also be something else. It can be something that comes from a personal history, something that they don't know exactly, but has impacted their life experiences and comes out in the moment in which they try to participate, be there, do the sport, be inside a group, be with others. And so this is that kind of context is very tricky, but is also a big opportunity to work with someone on the whys,
Okay.
on the reasons why they do not feel well
Mm.
to do something with others.
So what would you do in those kind of contexts? Would you maybe talk to that person singularly? Like, because if it's, if it's an environment where there's multiple people, how do you deal with that? If it's just one or a couple of people, how do you manage, this this inconvenience, I'd say, like,
These kind of issues need
yeah.
to be treated individually, at least for a part. So there is a first stage in which you need to find the proper moment in which to talk with this specific person, which means that usually we never work alone. In this context, we cannot be just one person with the group of people, because you need to have the possibility to just come out from the situation, start talking with one of the participants, knowing that the others can still go on with the activities without you. um, and the first thing, it seems stupid, but it is not, is to find the right moment, which is usually not when someone is experiencing something negative. So we need to wait for a moment in which the feeling has passed. Of course, if there is a very big problem, you have a person that's starts to cry, starts to scream, because the negative feeling is very, very important. Of course, you have to do something in that moment to help that person. But if you see something that's not quite working, but is not urgent, the first thing to do is to find a second moment in which you have the possibility to just casually ask the person how she or he is feeling. Usually it's that simple. So most of the things you need to know come out when you just get interested in how a person is feeling. Or you can mirror what you saw. So tell the person, I've seen you do these things, or I've seen that when I don't know, when the others are playing freely, there is no structured activity, but you have 15 minutes and you just play whenever you want. I've noticed that you never do. You choose to stay in a corner, you don't participate, you call yourself out of the activity. Is there a reason why? And most of the times being, very direct does the trick, because when a person is not comfortable in a situation, usually he or she wants to tell you why, because we never like to be uncomfortable. So if someone really asks us if he or she can do something to make us feel better, we do want to feel better, and we let the person help us. Of course, this is not always the case. Sometimes before a person is ready to tell you what the problem is, it takes a lot of time, but that time is anyways time spent in asking how are you, how you feel, do you feel good inside this situation? Because building trust comes from showing someone that you're really interested in the answers. We do so often ask each other, how are you? And we so often do not listen to the answer. It's true. It's basic and probably something you already know, but it's very, very true. So once you find a moment in which you really have the possibility to talk, and this needs to happen, of course, not inside the group usually, you have a chance to start understanding what the problem is. So help the person to identify it. Most of the times we are not capable of saying what's wrong when something's wrong. So we need someone to ask us good questions and try to lead us in a reasoning that helps us understand what's wrong. And there you have different possibilities. As I was saying before, mostly the categories are two. So it can happen that the person has fear of something in being included. And this is often the most simple case, because it takes just a little bit of trust to confess that something's wrong with feeling judged, or there's someone else in the group that said something, did something that put that person in an uncomfortable situation. So I don't want to play because he is there and he said those things that made me feel bad, and I don't want to play with him, I don't want to play with her. It's quite easy to kind of understand what happened. And in that case, you have two possibilities, but it depends on what comes out. Some things need to be reasoned always in a one-to-one relationship, because when, for example, if I fear other people's judgment, so most of the times I have to work on that. I mean, there is no way to know if the others are judging me. And if they do, and if they do it silently, they can do it. And probably the only solution is that I have to work on the fact that I can't be bothered by that sensation. In other cases, most cases, according to my experience, things need to be reasoned with the group. So once I get hold of what's wrong with the specific person, I have to think about it, to intervene immediately. Is not always the right way to do it. It's rarely the right way to do it. And just think about some activity that can be done with the whole group in order to approach the issue. For example, when conflicts arise or there is something not working, the group dynamic, the group needs to solve it. Otherwise, we do tell the person who has had the conflict that she is or he is the problem. If I have a problem being in a group and I have to be the one to solve it, it means I am the cause of the problem. But when a group is not working, the group is the cause of the problem, even if someone specific did something, sorry. So the problem needs to be addressed with the whole group. Sometimes the best way to do it is an indirect way. So it's useful to find an activity that they can do that can also be outside the sport practice. Often icebreaker games and activity like those can help a problem to emerge. When I say emerge, I mean if one of the members of a group finds a problem, the first step is the whole group needs to recognize it and give it validation. Otherwise, there's no way that the group can work on it. So the first step is to create an activity that allows the group to recognize that there has been something that didn't work. This can work also when you have individual conflicts. So two people in the same group that have had a problem between them, but the whole group has been negatively impacted by it. So the whole group works to solve this, also because there are at least 3 different versions of what happened. The person number 1 version, the person number 2 version, and the group's version of what really happened. And the only way, I'd say not to find the truth, but the only way to work on a solution is to identify one story that is able to include all 3 versions. And then you can go on and work on, okay, how do we go beyond the problem? How do we solve it? How do we recompose it? It's different when of course a person finds it difficult to be there to participate because she or he has something very deep that comes out. This means usually that there's some experience in his life, in her life, that have impacted a lot and that are indirectly connected to what's happening in the context. So you don't have a problem that's inside the group of people, inside the activity that they're doing, but the person has her own issue. That issue is in the past, but it's kind of coming out in different situation. In that case, the work needs to be one-on-one because the group is only indirectly involved in it. And these are the situation, the more complex situation, in which I have honestly few suggestions on a concrete level. We usually work as a team on these ones. I mean, when something like that comes out and with people, when you work with people with disabilities, it happens more often because there's always something about the acceptance of having a disability that is unresolved, even if the person has had a long experience of the disability and has dealt with some of these things, it can happen that some unresolved things come out in unexpected moments. In those cases, we do work with other professionals. So we are mostly educators, but also work with psychology. It escapes me the word in English. Sorry.
Maybe I can help you.
Psychology.
Psychologists.
Okay, era giusto. Sorry. And so we do work with them on these scenarios because the person needs a different approach to work on those things. Of course, we do work in projects, in group projects for this reason, because those are our competencies. It does not mean that it is impossible to meet someone who really needs an individual work. But in those cases, we just try to include someone that can do that kind of work instead of trying to do it ourselves, because sometimes we risk to do more damage than good if we try to do someone else's work. And we try to, reason to take the person again to think about what's happening in the group, in the context, and avoid opening big questions, big narratives about something that we feel belongs somewhere else. I don't know if it's clear explained like this.
Yes, yes. No, it was clear. I understand.
And
Yeah, yeah. No,
you
it
know,
was
I'm
really
thinking as while I'm speaking. So
yeah.
if I get confused, just ask me. Tell me to repeat, because I'm not sure I'm being clear.
Mhm. No, 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 it was perfectly clear. And actually, I was wondering, when you work with like, let's say like mixed group of, I mean,
Mhm.
disabled people and not disabled people, what's like the biggest challenge? Or even do you think that usually um, people who are not affected by disability have like the right way of interacting? What's like the things that can help and what's to avoid in general that maybe we do not know or we take for granted, since maybe somebody does not really have the habit to work with these kind of issues.
Okay. In general, if we work towards inclusion and integration, one key thing to do, and this is also a stupid thing, but important thing, is starting by asking the person with disability how much and in what they do need help. So the first step is not to think that because we are professionals of education, we do know when and how the person needs help. That is particularly important because people with the same kind of disability often have very different perceptions of how they want to be helped. Someone prefers to receive help without asking it. Like someone tells you, you see me having difficulties, you know I have a disability. Do I have to ask you to help me? You already know. And others do feel the opposite, and do tell us, I don't want you to imagine what I need. Let me ask you to do stuff for me when I need it, because I know what I can do by myself. I know what I can't do by myself. And I'll ask you if I need your help. Do not, rush to open the door for me, even if you think it's out of respect and politeness. Because if I can open the door, I want to be the one that opens the door. And this is a pact that needs to be done with the individual, because it doesn't come from the type of disability that the person has. It comes from how they feel about it. Once you know that, working on inclusion, it's easier, because you can just work on teaching, showing all the other people in the mixed group without a disability the same thing. So to be to be aware of the disability in the right way, I'd say, in the way that the person with the disability wants to, because it's tricky, because the two examples I used before are two people I do know who both told me one thing and the other the opposite, and it was at first very difficult for me, because I was always told um, that disability is that kind of thing, especially if it's physical, so you can see it. You don't have to look at, you don't stare a person with a disability. When I was a child, that was taught to me. And then I had to come out of that kind of mindset to work with people with disability, because it was a very shocking experience. One person who had a wheelchair once told me, I am tired of people that's afraid of saying hello to me when I meet them on the road, because they don't know me and they think that it is more polite not to say hello because they don't look at me that way than to respect me as a human being and say hello to me like they would everyone else on the street. So that's the basic work you do on inclusion. You just teach, show everyone else, teach yourself and then the others, I'd say, that the only way to be really inclusive is to be able to ask a person how they want their disability to be treated and their person as a consequence, and just do that. Often, what happens when you have mixed groups and you don't have particular knowledge or experience on how to deal with that is either, or the person with disability gets, unlooked, no one looks at it, and I mean no one thinks about all the little things that for that person work just in a different way with respect to others, or the opposite. More and more happens the opposite. We tend to concentrate all our attention on the person with disability, thinking that that's our job. We are there to help that person be able to do what the others can do, but this teaches the other a wrong message about disability. Disability is the lack of some ability, not all the abilities of the person. So if we put too much effort in helping the person, we teach the other people there. I'm talking mostly about young people here, but it also works with adults, to be true. We teach all the other people in the group that the person with disability is fragile, it's unable. We do emphasize, we do underline what's missing, and we do not give ourselves the opportunity to look at what's possible, not only what's impossible. And with kids and young people, this is very, very true. They do learn so much through how we act. So it's not useful to tell kids they need to include other kids with disabilities. To tell them has a little impact, but to show them has a very strong impact, because they do what we do. They don't listen to what we say. So that's most of the job. It seems very, very simple said like this, but it is not. Of course, one needs to have also strategies when things go wrong. I mean, in groups of kids and young people, Unfortunately or fortunately, sometimes conflict arises very, very openly. So the basic strategy is to treat, sorry if I say it like this, it's very, very blunt, but it's true, to treat disability in the right way, in a respectful way all the time, and to not always be the one who helps all the time. Of course, if one of the other kids in the group, in a mixed group, starts to do and say things that are very aggressive or not respectful towards the person with the disability, there you need to do something in very strong, very soon. It's not okay to just wait that for that kid to learn through my model how to work, how to relate with a person. But honestly, the fact that one in a conflict, the fact that one of the two people involved has a disability, it's honestly non-relevant. It doesn't change anything, because unpleasant, unrespectful things said between two people are unpleasant and unrespectful per se. So it's not different than to have to work with two kids, two young people, two adult people that are in conflict and are perfectly capable of doing anything they want. So there, the work needs to be on disrespect, not on disability. And this is a sign of respect, because it's not, we sometimes have been kind of educated to this. It's not, there is no scale in this respect. It's not worse if you do it towards a person who's fragile. It's wrong every time you do it. And this is an inverse sign of respect that is very important in situations in which mixed group contain also people with disability, because that's treating someone equally.
Yeah, it's true. I really get this one.
These are all basic, not particularly genius things I'm saying, but honestly, I really, really feel that basic things are the most important ones, because they allow us to really connect with someone with no regard, with no limitations. I mean, when two people connect, it doesn't matter if how many of them have disabilities. So if we can keep things basic and not think things too much, we do a better service to someone who can benefit from inclusion, because we really treat them
Yeah.
as anyone else, even if we are tempted by this thing that is, okay, I have to work with a person with a disability, I have to be extra careful, I have to be extra thoughtful, I have to be extra watch every move, measure everything, observe. But in truth, most of the time, this kind of approach does not help us to do real integration and real inclusion with people, because we overthink it and we underlie the fact that we overthink it. It shows. So it's like a constant reminder for the person with disability that we are looking at his disability.
Yeah, no, I understand.
There is some question, doubt, something I said that bugged you. You can also tell me I said something you don't agree with. It's okay.
May I have one question? You have already said that it takes too much effort to put good energy to facilitate somebody or the people with disabilities. It takes too much effort. So what is What is for the teacher or the coach the best way, according to you, to learn to relax from this, because it takes too much energy? I don't know if you understand me, but
I think so. So you're asking me how to approach the fact that you work also with mixed groups, with people with disability, without putting too much effort in the disability part. Okay. So, well, the only way to measure the right amount is what of effort put into the disability part. Okay, I'm gonna be politically non-correct here, but know that I do it because sometimes things need to be said the way they need to be said. But I mean no disrespect towards anybody. So in order to find how much effort you must put in the disability part of the person and not the person part of the person, the only way is to ask the person what are the things they need, what are the 4, 5, 6, 23 things in that context that they need from you, and what are the things that they feel they can do by themselves. This also opens a conversation in which one can tell you what he or she can do, which is very, very interesting. So it's very difficult to evaluate by yourself how much a person with a disability needs you in terms of help. But it's not really, it's scary, but not difficult to ask. That is the most accurate way to find out if you're overdoing it or not, or underdoing it. And sometimes, if we do not have a specific experience with a specific disability, answers may be very, very surprising. We are not, to be attentive, respectful, and to use empathy towards someone who has a disability doesn't mean that we are expected to put ourselves in their shoes. We cannot. We can imagine how it is to have a disability, but we cannot experience it. So we better not try. We better just ask what it means to not being able to walk, what it means to be not being able to walk when you are playing basketball. It surely means, and that we all know it, it means you cannot run, but it probably means a lot of other things that we cannot fathom, we cannot imagine. It means that probably you cannot throw the ball as high as the other players who have legs, working legs, yes, but it probably means a lot of other things, starting with maybe one, maybe the chair gets particularly uncomfortable. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the disability can interact with the ability of gripping the ball or not. But it is impossible to know these kind of details if you don't really medically know the diagnosis of the person. But the easier things is not to suppose, is really to ask. And usually people with disabilities have no trouble telling you what bothers them, but also specifically what you can do and what you must not do. I met a person once, this was outside sport, that told me, I am very happy when at work, we had an office, we worked together. We had an office, two offices that were connected by a door. And this door was closing, it closed on itself automatically. So if you didn't keep it open, when the person with the wheelchair arrived, it would close in his face. So once it happened that with a group of colleagues, we passed through the door. He was behind us and we didn't see him. We passed, the door closed, and then he came out the door, and we were super worried about the fact that we had just, closed the door in the face of a person on a wheelchair. So we said, sorry, we didn't see you. It was not done on purpose. And he said to us, I am very happy that you closed the door on my face. It means that you have forgotten I'm a wheelchair and you have remembered I'm your colleague. So sometimes people really do not want help on some things, also the basic ones. But talking about it is the only way to explore this, because there are also surely people in a wheelchair that would get very, very upset if I close the door in their face. I'm sure of it. And the other thing useful in these cases, it's to not be the only one that helps. So once you have understood how and on which things the person needs to, asks to be helped, you are not necessarily the person who does it all the time. That's also useful, especially if you have to work with someone who has an important disability, so has a lot of things in which he or she needs help practically to do things. So it's not easy to find things he or she can do alone completely, but it can help to reduce the amount of effort you put on it. And that's because, yes, a person may need, out of 10 things, 8 done for him or for her. But the important thing is not the amount of stuff you need to do to help them. The important thing is try to create an environment in which that person is not remembered only because he's the one who's always helped, who needs help all the time. So another way to do it, if you must put a lot of effort in it because the person needs it, is to divide the effort between the group. So try to understand the list of things the person need, and then evaluate which ones need to be done by you, which ones can be done by others, and ask others to do them.
I have a question regarding this point. What happens if we're talking about cognitive impairment, cognitive disability? Like in those cases, what do you do? Maybe if, I don't know, there's not somebody of their family in that moment that you can ask, how do you manage that kind of situation?
Okay, in our experience, when the cognitive impairment is important, so the person cannot tell you, well, it happens really rarely to never that the person participates in activity alone. So it's difficult to answer because it doesn't ever happen. I mean, when a cognitive disability is very important, the person doesn't go around by himself. And if they do, it's because you already know what you have to do. So you have already tools to interpret. Anyways, in those cases, which are a little bit more complicated, you just have to experiment, which seems scary, but it's the only way. So you have to try things that you think are helpful, but be very mindful of the reaction. Not only in terms it worked, it didn't work. That's one evaluation, but also it worked how. Because if you don't have the verbal clues or the reasoning on your part to ask the person, how was it? Did you like it? Was it good? Do you want me to do it in another way? And you have to observe the non-verbal response to what you try to do and try to interpret. Of course, if you have to work with a very complex cognitive disability, you need someone to teach you what it means, because there is no strategy that works for everyone. And of course, when a person doesn't give you the clues directly, it's impossible to work properly, to be sure you're not doing the wrong thing if you don't have someone very qualified that explains to you some things. I don't know if it happens to you. If it is, I'm sorry. I mean, if it happens that you have to work with people with this kind of disability and you have no support, honestly, the best thing you can do for yourself and for that person is to demand to have a different support, because you have no way to know otherwise if you're doing the right thing. And it's an enormous responsibility to just try what comes in your mind and see what happens. It can also become very tricky to manage if you do something wrong without knowing it's wrong. I mean, I'm thinking about autism. If you do something very, very wrong, it can trigger very complex situations.
Yeah.
So you need to have information. It's a requirement. Anyways, that can happen. Another thing that can happen is you have enough instruments, enough tools to handle the kind of disability the person has. Still, with autism, for example, things can go very, very wrong anyways. In those cases, the things I was saying before about the group comes in handy. So you need to have strategies to handle the situation in the moment in which the person has a crisis, is very, very agitated, and things are escalating fast, and that's in the I need to acquire a skill. An expert needs to explain me how to handle that. But afterwards, it's useful to work with the group on it, because then the job of the educator becomes the inclusion again. And inclusion means teaching to the others in a mixed group that things like that can happen. They are related to something that is out of control for that person, and they need to have, we need to talk about it, because if we don't, everyone gets a different idea on how to respond to that, included the ones I was telling you before, pretending they didn't see anything. It happened. It's a normal reaction for someone. Or get very upset because someone else was very upset and escalate more the context, because if someone is upset and the others get upset, that someone is going to get more and more upset.
Okay.
So talking about it with the group, finding a way to create a space in which the others can also ask questions.
When do you usually do this? Like at the end of games, you interrupt? Like how do you, in practical examples, like when this happens, how do you manage this? Like it's not easy, as you said, to find the right moment or the right way. Can you maybe give us like some practical examples? Just a couple, just a few to
Okay.
think about.
Let's say that something like an autism crisis happens during a game. Of course, the first thing you need to do is secure the person. So the first focus goes on the person who's having a crisis, on how to ease him or her out of it as fast as possible, how to protect him and the others from obviously what can come from a crisis. And that's the first thing, of course. In an ideal situation, there is more than one person there. So there can be one person that deals with the crisis. It's generally better not to go everyone goes to the person who's having a crisis, because it makes it worse. So there needs to be one person, which is the one that is trained better to handle it, and the one, probably, if there are more than one that has the training, the one that's more trusted by the person who's having the crisis, and handles the crisis, and if possible in a space other than the place where it happened. So yeah, you can also choose, if the conditions allow it, to move the person in another space, a quieter space, away from the others. But especially if you do this immediately, you need to address it immediately with the group, because the perception, if a person starts to feel very, very bad, having a crisis, and it's taken away, the message is, we don't talk to, pretend it didn't happen. The person's not here. When someone is feeling bad, it goes away. And it goes away, the problem with the person. So it's, in those cases, it's particularly important, if possible, to interrupt the activity in that moment, explain to the group what happened, because not everyone knows it or recognizes exactly what happened. Give space to questions and answer as as clearly but as normally possible, especially if you work with young people, with kids. They do not need to know every single medical fact about autism and a crisis. They need to know three things: that it happened out of the control of the person, that the person is okay, despite the fact that it seemed very, very, very upset, and that there are things, or that they can do or not. So the three important things are these ones. So it's okay, what happened, it's okay, because it has an explanation. The person will be okay and will be coming back soon when he's feeling, or he or she is feeling better. And in order to help when things like this happen, you can do this, or you can not do this. For example, you can tell them, when you see, if it happens again, when you see something like this, remember that it's better to call me if I'm not there, if I'm not looking, instead of going to the person, trying to calm the person down, because sometimes kids, of course, also have positive instincts towards someone who's feeling bad. So they try to be helpful, but they not always know how to. So these are the three important things to tell them. And it's very important to let them ask questions, even the ones that may seem less politically correct. In particular, if they're kids, they have very wild imaginations. So they do ask things that you do not expect, like, but when this happens, can he bite his tongue and bite off his tongue during a crisis? Which is something we tend to react to by saying, what a stupid question, but this is what you want to know. But they do need to understand it better, because often, if they don't have a direct experience, if they don't know anyone with that kind of disability, no one bothered to explain them the existence of that disability in order to protect them. We tend to think that not talking to kids about the different disabilities that exist is a way to not show them politically incorrect, the bad thing of the world, the things that, because especially as parents, we know that they have been lucky. Our children have been lucky because they could be kids with disabilities. The odds are the odds. So we kind of developed this thing that makes us look at disability like something that fortunately didn't happen to me. It would be bad if it had happened to me. So it's something bad. So it's something I need to shield my children from. Like I would pop a bubble, destroy a fantasy, a fairy tale by telling my kid that there are people who have this kind of difficulties in life, and it can happen up until I have to. I mean, if my son has in class someone with a disability, then I start to think maybe it's the case to talk about this. But if it doesn't, if my kid never has another student in his class who has a disability, we tend not to talk about it with kids. So the first time they encounter it, they have many, many questions, but answering is useful, because once they think they grasp it, they stop fearing it. And fear is the first reason why then they then develop strange behaviors, stereotypes, and all the behaviors that can then perceived by the person with disability as a disrespectful behavior.
I see. Thanks a lot.
So you work more with cognitive than physical disability?
No, I mean, it just happened
Okay.
in my life. So I had questions about it because sometimes personally, even we don't know how to react to it, even in some working context of it happened. And, you know, I always wonder what's the best way to react, you know, in a helpful way, even in group contexts, you know, what to do. So I was, you know, wondering.
It's sometimes it's difficult not to intervene. I mean,
Yeah.
the best idea is that the most competent person should do it.
Mhm.
But it's like it happens sometimes. It happens like when someone has an accident
Mhm.
and we all go there. You know, the film
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
scenes
That's the
where
worst.
someone starts to say, let him breathe, let
Yeah.
him breathe. It's a human instinct. When someone experiences something bad, you are drawn, your empathy tells you, go there and do something.
Yeah.
But we need to sometimes refrain from that, because we risk, it's a
Yeah,
serious risk, the
making it
one
worse.
to
Yeah,
create
yeah.
confusion around the person who is already experiencing something that's not pleasant, and the confusion adds to it. So it's counterintuitive, but letting someone who knows the person and the disability intervene and just stay 10 feet away, it's not, it's not a lack of interest. It's
Yeah.
the best choice, because, see, goal number one is to manage what happened. Goal number two is doing everything else around it that sends the message that things like that can happen, that nothing really, really bad happened, that it can be managed, it can be, respected in some way. Like a moment of crisis for a person with autism, it's a moment that needs a lot of respect. So we try to handle it respecting the fact that the person in that moment has no control over it. So we cannot ask him or her to regulate. We need to adjust all the context around it in order to make it as less unpleasant possible. But that can be done in a second moment. If it happens in a moment in which things cannot be stopped and managed, then a conversation on it can happen also after some time. Now I'm thinking I'm trying to think to an example, but it's not coming to me now. Suppose that it happens in an official play, not a training session. In that case, probably the match, it cannot be suspended to do the things I said in the order I said. Then of course the first goal is always to secure the person who's having a crisis, and the rest of the conversation happens afterwards. Usually it's better, if possible, to not organize it. I mean,
Okay.
if it happens in a moment in which you cannot stop the activity and do it in that moment and say, it's all right, it's okay, this is what happened, blah, 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 blah. Then you do it right after the activity, but you avoid saying, okay, guys, today happened something.
Yeah.
Next week, on Friday, we'll talk about it. That's, of course, then you have to adapt to the situation and do what you can do. But that's risky, because when the conversation happens on the emotions that the crisis, the moment arose in people, you can, very it's easy, it's not the right word, but it works well with a little effort, because everyone is still feeling something about what happened. Someone is scared, someone is worried, someone doesn't know how to feel, and you work with that, and you just, and it comes out easily, and and the people also finds it easier to say, I am feeling like this, and gives you clues on how to treat on the matter, on how to on what to say. If you wait too much, or make an appointment out of it, people feel compelled to prepare for it.
Yeah.
So according, of
Makes it
course, to the
worse.
ages, but
Yeah.
also kids have this perception that if we decide that tomorrow we will talk about it, I must arrive prepared.
Yeah, for sure. It
So
simplifies
they
the
start
problem.
to elaborate their own version of what happened before you have the chance to, put some box around it, and
Yeah.
and work on how they perceive it before they will eventually anyways
Okay.
work work out the
Yeah.
version, give it meaning by themselves, and also come back after a while and ask again some questions.
Yeah.
But at least if you can work with the first impression, the first emotions soon, you can at least avoid some some pets, some direction there they could take. You can close some doors, the ones you don't want them to go on, the roads that have to do with fear mostly, because that's a big impediment to inclusion, because if they fear the person who has the disability, you don't have many strategies to come back from there.
Yeah.
Once
I
fear has
understand.
settled in, what they have learned is that a person with a cognitive disability is a dangerous person, then you find it really, really difficult to work in another direction. So some doors you have to close immediately, if possible, of course.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for your answer. I don't know if anybody else has other questions to ask. Okay. If there are no more questions, then I would love to thank Silvia for being with us and giving us so much insight to think about and really practical information to work on. And so, I mean, if you want, you can also exit or stay with us, but we will have to do like a jot form, which is a bit technical and maybe boring thing that of course you don't have to do.
I'd stay, but I have some other things to do before the day is over. So
Yeah.
thank you for having me. If you
No
have any requests, further questions, you can mail me. If you want to have a better description of what we have done in terms of projects and activities, I can ask you, my colleagues, to put together something for you, like in writing, if
Okay.
that could be useful.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if the others agree, you could write your email in the chat box so that if they have further questions, they can ask you personally, maybe more specific things. And for the others, don't leave because I will share with you the link of a survey to complete. I will give you 20 minutes. It's an assessment of the project. And so, yeah. Okay, so Silvia wrote her email. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
with us, really, and for
Thank
answering
you.
all of our questions.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.